Oh, good afternoon, West Ham fans. It's Thursday, so it's time for the Russy Rumour Roundup. A very happy Thursday to you all. General election day in the UK, so, always vote if you can. Anyway, it is the Russy Rumour Roundup. For anyone new to the channel, where have you been? But thanks for joining us. And what we do is we go through all the rumours of players coming in and dissect them and bring them back to you. So rather than sort of you having to wade through it, we do it. And warning, warning, warning. I always have to put this warning at the beginning. We are not saying we are signing these players. We're not signing every one of these players. In fact, we make a joke of it at the end, as always. Have to say that because people are, we're never going to sign him. We're probably not. But the idea is they've been reported and we report that back to you. So we've got quite a bit to get through today. Apologies. I was going to do it live, but unfortunately I've had to sort, family stuff. So we're doing it recorded. So I do apologise. It was live on Monday and hopefully be back to doing a live next Monday. This morning we spoke about Sergio Reguilon from Spurs, who potentially maybe a reunion with Julian Lopetegui, maybe, obviously with their time together at Sevilla. And then late last night, I was in my slumber and then I saw the whole Lucas Paqueta story drop. So we did a quick video on that. I don't know. Obviously, Fabrizio Romano's come out and said it now, but that's basically reporting what's been reported. So doing what we do, basically. So just because he's reported, does that mean? I don't know. Don't think so. Anyway, let's crack on. A lot to get through. Talk about Brazil. Let's talk about Wesley Kuyt. Do you remember him? It was all about him until Luis Guilherme came along. But apparently, West Ham have gone back in for him. And that interest has woken up other suitors, primarily Porto, who are apparently lining up a cash plus player deal to sign Wesley after obviously we made contact over doing according to Gol Brazil. The report from the news outlet yesterday said that the Portuguese side are ready to pay. Now this is what gives me sort of a really. They apparently are willing to pay 7 million euros while including two players to land this 19-year-old sensation from Corinthians. Obviously, we don't know who those two players are. If they were fucking good players, then that could be a good deal for Corinthians potentially. Obviously, Portuguese, they already speak. I imagine there would be Portuguese players because naturally they speak the language already potentially. But apparently agents are discussing even more names being added into the equation with other options from Spain, Brazil, France, potentially interested. Obviously, we're in the hunt. I said hunt for the Brazilian already, alongside the likes of Atletico Madrid, Brighton, Palace, but no progress has been made. Apparently, the Corinthians president, Augusto Melo, wants about 25 million pounds for him, about 30 million euros. We bid, I think, about 15 million. So we're about 10 million short of their valuation for him. I mean, he's, widely tipped as a real potential, one of the finest talents in South America. Obviously, arguably, we've already secured one. There was talk of maybe us purchasing him and then getting him in January when the Brazilian Serie A season finishes, because it's very much in the midst of the season at the moment. But I don't know. Maybe it's one Brazilian too much. Don't know. The Russy Rumour rating, the original Rumour rating, gives it a Lamar. I give it a Lamar. A 50-50. Let's talk about Aaron Wan-Bissaka, shall we? Now, apparently Man United are weighing up their options as to whether they should let West Ham target Aaron Wan-Bissaka leave this summer. I mean, I know we've signed a couple of players, but hasn't really sort of hit gear yet. I think after the 30th of June, you're going to start seeing a lot more players moving around now. He's got a year left. Obviously, they bought him for 50 million quid back in 2019. And it's not really proven that price tag. from Crystal Palace. He's got a year left in his contract, so they could risk letting him leave for nothing in 12 months' time, or selling him for something now to get something in the books for him. I think if they don't demand a ridiculous amount for him, I think it could be a great option for us. But no doubt others will be interested in him as well. And the Russy Rumour rating gives this one a 6 out of 10. Slightly one up from a Lamar. And people ask why I call it Lamar, because he had a song called 50-50. Let's talk about Callum bloody Wilson, shall we? Now, apparently, according to Mama Brown, our friends of the channel, they have reported that West Ham have approached Newcastle for permission to speak to Callum ahead of a potential move. The 32-year-old is expected to make his way out of St James's Park this summer. He's entering the final year of his contract, and Newcastle are looking at alternatives. Calvert-Lewin was one they were looking at particularly. So Wilson appears to be maybe surplus to requirements for Eddie. And apparently this reported request follows earlier talks we've had with Newcastle for him. It seems though we're trying to gauge Callum's interest about a potential move to West Ham. Obviously, he's always been a pantomime villain for West Ham, really. Always tended to score against us. So if we did have him, he wouldn't score against us. Well, he'd probably score an own goal, wouldn't he? I mean, he's 32. It's basically the same issue we'll have with Antonio. Injuries, he's been in and out of injuries, hasn't really had a sustained period in the first team for a while at Newcastle. Alexander Isak taking his place. Would that happen at West Ham? Yes. I don't think he's not the long-term solution. If it's a case of we're getting rid of Antonio and we want to bring in a veteran striker, maybe. But then we still got Danny Ings on the books as well. He's injury prone. When he plays, he's a clinical striker. There's no denying that. But at 32, doesn't really fit our profile. And I know sometimes you have to bring in experience, but I'd bring in experience which potentially is going to be on the park for the full season, where I don't think Callum would be, in my opinion. The Russy Rumour rating, I give this a Lamar because stranger things have happened at sea. We'd be linked with a lot worse. Let's talk about Matt O'Reilly. He's the talk of the town at the moment. Apparently, we have reportedly held talks with the midfielder who had 31 goal contributions last season. The Danish midfielder has snubbed Scotland despite scoring 18 goals and 13 assists in 37 Premier League games last season, and obviously decided to represent his mother's country of origin, I believe, or his grandmother. Unfortunately, we do seem to be facing competition, unsurprisingly. Although I think we've got enough to beat the opposition in terms of Fulham and Southampton, two clubs which I think, they have more of a heartstring approach to Matt rather than necessarily maybe a monetary. So obviously Fulham, he was a youth team player at Fulham. And so maybe keen to return to where it all started. The Southampton manager, Russell Martin, managed Matt at MK Dons. So, there's heart and head type thing. I think we would be if you stack it in terms of, potential, but obviously there's a emotional connection to Fulham and Southampton. Fulham and Southampton haven't reached have sizable differences from what Celtic value the player, and Fulham have yet to actually make an offer. So there is potentially a golden opportunity for us to try and swoop in and get a deal done ahead of the competition by meeting their asking price. I think it's around 25 million quid, something like that. He's 23, and he's got that energy. He's as I said, scored a lot of goals in Scotland last season and set them up as well for a midfield position to get 18 goals. Granted, it was Celtic, I appreciate, and they are one of the top two, but still, people have a knack of scoring, and if he has a knack of scoring and a knack of assisting, that does tend to translate to other leagues as well, potentially. The Russy Rumour rating, the original Rumour rating, gives him 6 out of 10. Let's talk about Jean-Claire. We'll sort of talk about Jean-Claire and Max at the same time, and we'll interchange between the two. Obviously, we've apparently had a bid of around £25 million, something like that, rejected for Jean-Claire Todibo from Nice, the French centre half. Now, according to reports, we're due to put bids back in for both. Now, I'm not for once assuming that we're going to get both, because likely both together would probably cost about £90 million, which would probably be our budget gone, or the majority of our budget gone. And I think that's too much of an outlay. It may be a case that we do what did previously with Zuma and Aged. Maybe we get one in now and one in next year, or that type of thing, or because obviously that's what we did. We remember we had Aged and Zuma, and we put in bids for both. Zuma, basically, we got Zuma in first. Aged was rejected, so to speak. He then got a new contract, and we signed him the year after. So, sort of a bit of a Bunsen burner for him. Obviously, both of them together would be a phenomenal partnership, I think. But apparently, Lopetegui's preference is with Kilman, considering they work together at Wolves. If one ends up becoming available for less money, they're probably more likely to be attainable and the preferred target. But now it seems that Kilman, for me, is the more likely to turn up at London Stadium this summer. The likes of Man United, obviously, Man United, a slight issue with them being owned by, obviously, Sir Jim, and he owns Nice as well. So I don't know how that works out in terms of art partnerships, but in terms of multi-club ownerships. But I think in terms of, that's why I put them both 50-50. So for him, he's 50-50. And for, there we go, Max Kilman, 50-50. I think we'll get both. I think we get one. We won't get both. I'd love to get both. I think, very exciting, very good players. And I think they'd complement each other quite nicely. But I just think it's one or the other. And I think maybe Jake O'Brien is the consolation prize, bless him. Or maybe it's the second one. So maybe it's one of these as the first choice and then Jake. But we don't know, do we? Just don't know. We're just purely speculating as per usual. Let's talk about another player we've spoken about before, and that is the Genoa number 10, Albert Gudmundsson, the Icelandic international. He's been heavily linked to a move away from Genoa, and West Ham have been in the fray for him. But according to Italian media outlet La Repubblica, Genoa are demanding 34 million up front in cash for Albert. We know he can play anywhere along the front line. I think his best role is probably number 10, maybe, or out on the left, potentially. He's very quick, great technical ability, a really good player. It'd be really exciting to see. Last season, 16 goals and 5 assists in 37 games for Genoa. I think if the only fly in the ointment for me is his age, in that he's 27. So you're paying £34 million for a 27-year-old. Granted, you'll get 3 years out of him, 3-4 good years out. I don't think there'll be any sell-on value for him. For me, if he comes in ready to play. There's no buying potential like Luis Guilherme, for example. And there will be a couple of moves which will be people who can go in straight away and set themselves up. And Albert could be one of those players. Could be. Obviously, he's untested in the Premier League. But technically, he's got all the ability without a shadow of a doubt. The Russy Rumour rating, the original Rumour rating, 6 out of 10. Being quite conservative with my scores today. Now, apparently, Tim Steinen has sent scouts to. We know Tim was doing the Euros. Obviously, he was back to do the interviews this week rather, in terms of the first day of J-Lo's reign as head coach at West Ham. But apparently, he did send out scouts, according to Turkish newspaper Millet Gazetesi. West Ham scouts were watching Turkey's versus Austria's 2-1 victory on Tuesday evening, and they're watching one man in particular, and that's just this gentleman who we've spoken about before, Freddie Kadagura. Apparently, back in May, I think, we were talking about how us and Arsenal were both competing for the Dutch-born 24-year-old left-back. And obviously since then, Fenerbahce have got Jose Mourinho as their manager. So there might be a little bit of discrepancy, where before I think it was not so much a slam dunk he was leaving, but now it's a slight fly in the ointment. Selling Freddie would mean that he's, Jose's got another 20 odd million quid to spend rebuilding the Fenerbahce side. Obviously, Turkey are doing very well through to the quarterfinals. Where actually, ironically, Freddie will face the country of his birthplace in Netherlands. He's a Dutch-born Turkish international. The Turkish report claims that his transfer to a major European league is important for both Fenerbahce's future and the young player's career. And the decisions the club will make during this process will be decisive for Turkish football in the coming period. He actually played left wing back for the game against Austria, but was very good and can equally play left back. So again, gives you options, very similar to Emerson does. The problem for West Ham at the moment is Arsenal also sent a scout, as did Borussia Dortmund, Stuttgart, Bayer Leverkusen, Fulham, Wolves, Atletico Madrid, and Valencia. And it was claimed that Fenerbahce had already rejected a 25 million euro bid from Dortmund and told the Germans they want 30 million euros for him. So that's about 25 million quid in it, something like that. The Russy Rumour rating, the original Rumour rating, I give this on actually, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. I'm recalibrating 4 out of 10 because I just think there's so many clubs, and I know we should be competing with these clubs, but the likes of Atletico Madrid, Borussia Dortmund, they buy Leverkusen, and these guys Arsenal, they can offer them Champions League football. Do you know what I mean? And we can't at the moment. Let's talk about Atletico Madrid. Let's talk about Mario Hermoso. Apparently, he's another name on our radar, according to reports, as well as Villa and Newcastle's radar. Now, his Atletico Madrid contract has expired. It ran out on Sunday. He was bought for 21 million euros, £1 million rather, from Espanyol, and now he's available apparently for nothing, being out of contract. He is apparently looking to capitalise on his free agent status. The one-time Real Madrid prospect wants a 3-year contract, which works at around £13 million, about 80k a week, which seems doable. Napoli apparently also are hot on the heels of Mario, but they're only offering him a contract around 60,000 a week. So, there's definitely, that's definitely within our wages, is within the likes of Newcastle and Aston Villa as well. Obviously, there will be a signing on fee as well. Again, slight caveat: he's 29, but I know, and then I say free transfer. I appreciate he's not free transfer because we've got to pay the signing on fee and stuff like that. But he could be a shrewd bit of business. And as long as the SPL, the Saudi Pro League, don't come calling, because they could blow us out the water, blow any side out the water in terms of wages. We saw yesterday that potentially Arthur Thetre, who a guy we were linked to, the Belgian international centre half, looks like he's going to SPL. Ironically, his agent Youssef Sofia, former West Ham player, who I know has a lot of ties to the UAE, so it's hardly surprising he's been punting him to him, and I said punt. The Russy Rumour rating, the original rating, gives Mario a 4 out of 10. Just think, don't know. But then there's the whole Spanish thing, but then so is that Aston Villa's got the whole Spanish thing, Unai Emery as well. Let's move on, like Donkey Kong, and talk about Duran. Duran. Apparently, West Ham added him to our list of summer targets, according to TalkSport. He has been previously linked to move to Chelsea, and he's available to leave Aston Villa this summer, according to TalkSport. Not seen as a major part of Unai Emery's plans for this season, but West Ham looking to add more firepower. We obviously we were linked with him when he was at Chicago Fire, I think, before he signed for Aston Villa. I mean, he's a young lad. He's had a little bit of joy at Aston Villa, but West Ham see a lot of potential for the 20-year-old. Struggle for playing time, but then anyone would really if they've got Ollie Watkins ahead of them, in all honesty. Ollie Watkins is a fantastic player. Now, the Colombian international where's my thing gone? He signed from Chicago Fire January 2023 for £18 million. He's made just 3 appearances in the starting 11 for Unai Emery's side. And according to TalkSport, they're opening to hear offers for him this summer. Villa will obviously look to make some sort of profit, particularly with all the FFP skullduggery they've been doing and the PSR stuff. So we'll see. I think it does tick a lot of boxes, in particularly in terms of Tim. So that's why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 on the original Rumour rating. And lastly, is it lastly? I think so. Let's talk about Sergio Gomez from Man City. A guy we were linked to him and it went quiet, and apparently West Ham are still keen on signing him. And according to Mundo Deportivo, they said that West Ham could be willing to meet the 12.7 asking price. That seems a bargain. The Spanish outlet says us, Roma, AC Milan and Real Betis are all interested in landing his signature, and 2 of those clubs are ready to meet his price tag. The Hammers could be one of them at this stage. It's a waiting game to see if City actually receive an offer for the talented defender. It's thought that Gomez will prefer a move back to La Liga and a move to actually Real Sociedad. But they're not in a rush to accelerate a move. Again, leaving the door open for West Ham to potentially swoop in there and get someone like Sergio for around 13 million quid. Obviously, we don't have international European football to offer, but we do have his compatriot in terms of being Spanish, as being a head coach, and I think he could really thrive and be a key man in a more possession-based game plan, which is what we're led to believe we're going to be looking at. I really think he would be a cracking signing for us, but give him a 6 out of 10 because we haven't put bidding for him yet, and he's 12.5 million or 30 million quid. Jesus, we should be all over that like a rash, in my opinion. So more importantly, where are we on the list? And this is what I mean, we take the mickey out of it. 152 players. We have been linked to 152 players with the new batch today, with the likes of Region now added to the list. You're on the list. I will go through this list eventually and take off the players who are not available, who have since left their clubs or have been signed if there's a free transfer. But as you can appreciate, there's a lot there. There's a lot to get through. But I will do that eventually. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to give it a like. It helps us. It's free. Or give us a little positive comment or negative comment. We read them all and respond. And if you're new to the channel, why don't you consider subscribing or maybe become a channel member? Again, entered into all our members draws. We did our members draw on Monday. So if you are a channel member, go back and watch the live show on Monday. We had 4 prizes: signed West Ham shirts, signed football, and 2 West Ham metal kits from our channel's friends, channel sponsors at Alloy Collectors. If you are in the East London area, just keep an eye on our socials on Saturday and Sunday. You may have the opportunity to win some of those fantastic like these things. And as mentioned, I think Howe asked, it's meant to represent like a training, like the thingamajig at London Stadium, the what's it called, the changing rooms, and you get stickers. So you can put stickers of your favourite player, and similarly, you could do them on the back as well. I haven't put mine on the back yet, but I'd probably put Maxwell Corney. Anyway, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble. Keep the faith, my friends. See you at Hampstead Lines. Laters, potatoes.